Imagine a time when America wasn't united, when every field could become a battlefield, and the question of freedom could split families in two. The Civil War wasn't just a conflict, it was America fighting its own reflection. But one battle, one single moment, turned despair into destiny. This is the hidden story of Gettysburg, the true turning point that saved the Union and redefined America. By 1861, the country was a house divided. The industrial might of the North was pitted against the agrarian traditions of the South. What began as a simmering political disagreement over states' rights and, most critically, the institution of slavery, boiled over into a full-scale war. The Union, the North, fought to preserve the nation, to keep the dream of a unified country alive. The Confederacy, the South, fought for its independence and the preservation of a way of life built on human division. For 2 long years, the conflict raged. Families were torn apart, with brothers literally fighting brothers on opposite sides. The initial belief on both sides that this would be a quick, decisive war vanished in the smoke and bloodshed of battles like Bull Run and Antietam. As the war dragged on, the casualties mounted into the hundreds of thousands. The very fabric of the nation was unraveling, and for many, it seemed the dream of unity was slipping away forever. The question was no longer just about politics. It was about survival. Could this nation, conceived in liberty, long endure? By the summer of 1863, the situation for the Union had grown dire. The Confederate Army, under the brilliant and audacious command of General Robert E. Lee, was on the move. Feeling confident after a series of victories, Lee decided to take a monumental gamble. He launched a second invasion of the North, pushing his Army of Northern Virginia deep into Union territory, into Pennsylvania. His objective was clear and audacious. He wanted to win a decisive battle on Northern soil. The stakes could not have been higher. A major Confederate victory in the North could shatter the Union's will to fight. It could also, Lee hoped, convince European powers like Britain and France to officially recognize the Confederacy as a sovereign nation. This recognition would open the door to foreign aid, trade, and military support, potentially tipping the scales of the war for good. President Abraham Lincoln, burdened by the immense weight of the war, knew that such a defeat could force him to the negotiating table and concede the nation's division. The future of the United States, of a single, unified country, was hanging by the thinnest of threads. Everything was about to converge on a small, unsuspecting town that nobody had ever heard of. For 3 harrowing days, from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, the quiet, rural town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, became the epicenter of the storm. It was here that the Union's Army of the Potomac finally met Lee's invading force, and the resulting clash would become the largest and bloodiest battle ever fought in North America. Day 1 began with a surprise encounter. Confederate troops, searching for supplies, clashed with Union cavalry just outside the town. The fighting escalated rapidly as both armies scrambled to bring in reinforcements. By the end of the day, the Union forces had been pushed back through Gettysburg, but they managed to seize and hold crucial high ground to the south of the town, on hills like Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. This defensive advantage would prove decisive. Day 2 saw some of the most ferocious and desperate fighting of the entire war. Lee launched massive assaults on both flanks of the Union line. Legendary places were forged in fire and courage that day. Little Round Top, where a bayonet charge saved the Union flank. the wheat field and the peach orchard, where controls shifted back and forth in a brutal slaughter, and Devil's Den, a maze of boulders where snipers and soldiers fought hand to hand. The Union line bent and buckled under the immense pressure, but it did not break. Day 3 was the climax. Having failed to break the Union flanks, Lee made one final, desperate roll of the dice. He ordered a massive frontal assault against the center of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. This became the infamous Pickett's Charge. Around 12,500 Confederate soldiers marched across a mile of open field, straight into a storm of relentless cannon and rifle fire. It was a magnificent, tragic spectacle of bravery and doom. When the smoke finally cleared, more than half of the attacking force lay dead or wounded. The charge was broken, and with it, the back of the Confederate army. Lee was defeated. The Confederacy would never again mount such an offensive. Gettysburg was a monumental victory for the Union, but its true significance went far beyond the battlefield. It was a spiritual awakening for a nation exhausted by war. The sheer scale of the loss, over 50,000 casualties from both sides in just 3 days, was staggering. As Lincoln read the casualty lists and saw the images of families weeping, he began to see a deeper purpose through the immense pain. This wasn't just about winning a war. It was about what the nation would become after the fighting stopped. 4 months later, Lincoln returned to that battlefield to help dedicate a national cemetery for the fallen soldiers. There, amidst the freshly dug graves, he delivered a speech of just 272 words. It was the Gettysburg Address. In those brief, powerful remarks, he redefined the very meaning of the war. He reminded the nation that the conflict was not just about preserving the old Union, but about a new birth of freedom, a second founding built on the principle that all men are created equal. He gave the suffering a purpose, transforming the brutal war into a struggle for the soul of America. The Civil War was the ultimate test of America's soul, and Gettysburg became the enduring symbol of that test, the symbol of unimaginable sacrifice, incredible courage, and profound transformation. The battle proved that unity wasn't a given. It was something that had to be earned, fought for, and forged in fire. Through the blood and the struggle, a stronger, more resilient nation was born. This was the moment when America fought itself, and in doing so, truly found itself. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you want to see more forgotten moments of history come alive, make sure to subscribe to Neo Historica A.I, where every story reveals a truth we still live by today. We'll see you next time.